Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great American Show. It's great to have you with us. Happy Friday. It's a new day, which means I have a new judge to report on. Another rogue judge. Imagine that. The Trump derangement syndrome, trying to prevent President Trump from putting forth his America First agenda. Yeah, it seems like we repeat ourselves every day here, but it's a new story and it's a new judge every day. In some cases, it's one of the Marxist district judges from D.C., but today it's U.S. District Judge Amir Ali, a Biden appointee, blocking President Trump from cutting billions of dollars of USAID money and foreign aid that Congress authorized. Trump is saying he'll immediately appeal Judge Ali's ruling. President Trump has the executive order to ensure that all foreign aid is accountable to the taxpayers and aligns with the America First priorities that people voted for, according to a White House spokesperson. I mean, it's a joke. This federal judge has blocked President Trump from unilaterally cutting billions of dollars of foreign aid authorized by Congress that's set to expire at the end of September. He made the ruling last night, and the administration remains under a duty to comply with appropriations law unless Congress changes them. They cannot choose to not spend the roughly $4 billion of the nearly $12 billion appropriated in 2024 that's set to expire at the end of this month. Rogue judges thinking they're going to now do appropriations. It doesn't work like that. And I think it's just part of the sentiment. Yesterday, if you joined us, you heard about the story about the dozen or so judges who are secretly and quietly very upset that the Supreme Court keeps overturning their rulings. And it's for one reason and one reason only, because their rulings are unconstitutional and not American. Donald Trump is not winning at the Supreme Court because his name is Donald Trump. If anything, that would be a reason for them to rule against him. Donald Trump is winning on the rule of law, and he will win and prevail in this case as well. The Republican Party has been on a roll lately, and it's up to them to screw it up, which somehow they always find a way. But nonetheless, things are going, I think, pretty good in this country. Unless, of course, you ask Senator Froghorn Leghorn Mitch McConnell, who will be departing soon. He would tell you that the second presidency has entered a period of danger with certain similarities to the 30s, according to a new interview that he just did for the Lexington Herald, calling it the most dangerous period since before World War II. Imagine that. Mitch McConnell doesn't really know where he is, barely knows he's alive. I think he's dealing with his own health issues right now. Yet, he's out here to criticize President Trump. What has Mitch McConnell ever done in his tenure as a senator? He hasn't done a half, a quarter, a tenth, a 100th of what President Trump has done in his first term or this last 7 months or so. Yet he has the audacity to come out. Mitch McConnell has done nothing but take lobbyist money, and we're going to take all this up in just a moment with my pal Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen, lead pollster for Rasmussen. But he hasn't done anything. He's taken millions and millions of dollars from lobbying firms, from lobbying companies, from big pharma, from big tech, whatever. Yet he wants to come out and criticize President Trump over tariffs. The man doesn't even know he's alive. I mean, it's truly sad. Like I said, we're going to take up all the Republicans' shortcomings and their wins that I think overwhelmingly, whether it be the courts, some of the courts, or RFK Jr. on Capitol Hill yesterday, or just the general sentiment of the Marxist Dems on a collision path with implosion. President Trump now saying he may take a stance in the race for mayor, New York City mayor, if the Republicans can't figure it out by next Wednesday. So Donald Trump unilaterally having to do the job himself, but he's got a few great people with him, Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, I mean, to name a few, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, doing a very, very, very good job. President Trump is set to sign an executive order any day now, changing the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Expected to come any moment now, any day now. The President and Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, reportedly changed the name, the Department of War, as part of the administration's, quote, war ethos campaign within the Pentagon. The White House confirmed earlier this afternoon that Trump would roll out the name change any given moment. The executive order calls for using the Department of War as a secondary title for the Department of Defense, along with phrases like Secretary of War for Hegseth, according to the White House fact sheet. The order also instructs Hegseth to propose both legislation and executive actions to make the name permanently the U.S. Department of War. Likewise, implementing the order will require modifications to public-facing websites and official signage at the Pentagon, including renaming the Public Affairs Briefing Room to the Pentagon War Annex. I like the sound of that. So we could expect that to come at any given moment now from the Trump administration. Folks, as I said, our guest today is lead pollster for Rasmussen Reports, good friend of mine, good friend of the show's, the great Mark Mitchell. There's so much to talk about today, and Mark and I usually have a great discussion regardless of what the topic is, but it's usually on the Republicans' shortcomings. But I think this is probably one of the better weeks the Republicans have had since Donald Trump has taken back office. So many things are going great. Congress is now back in session. Congress is hopefully going to start doing their job, hopefully going to have a successful term, putting forth the America First agenda that Americans voted for, putting forth the Trump agenda that Americans voted for. But it's going to be incumbent on Mike Johnson and John Thune. And John Thune, I think, is going to be a problem. John Thune, I think, through and through is a rhino, in my opinion. Hasn't shown us otherwise to be to the adverse. Came out yesterday before RFK's hearing and said he is going to face tough questions. You would never see Chuck Schumer or Cory Booker come out, or any leadership Democrat, Hakeem Jeffries or Nancy Pelosi or any of these Democrats come out and say such an absurd thing against their own administration, their own party. But this is what we get in John Thune. So truly sad that I think the Republicans, I said this yesterday as well, are going to have to keep him on a tight leash. And at any given moment, get ready to pull the plug and put somebody else in there. I, from the beginning, hoped it was Rick Scott who was going to take over that job. We're stuck with John Thune now, and the Republicans have got to hold this man to a tight leash and not let him run astray like they let Mitch McConnell run for far too long, because you get what you get with Mitch McConnell if they don't hold Thune back. We're going to take all this up and much, much more on the other side of this quick break with Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen Reports. Folks, please stay with us. The Great America Show continues in just moments. We're coming right back. Happy Friday. We'll be right back.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, My Pillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7, the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great, and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs, or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
Mark, a delight as always to have you back on the Great America Show. Happy Friday. I want to start with first, it's been a rough week, at least in my opinion. Let me get your take on it. For the Democrats, loss after loss. Federal judges telling them that they have to close Alligator Alcatraz in Florida. Appeals judge comes in and says, nah, you guys can keep it open and you can continue with construction. You had RFK on the Hill yesterday, absolutely obliterating every single Democrat and rhino who thought they were going to get him. You've got federal judges who are complaining behind the scenes. There's a few of them who are complaining that the Supreme Court is overturning every one of their anti-Trump rulings that they come forward. What they don't realize is the Supreme Court hasn't particularly been favorable to Donald Trump. I think they've been favorable to the rule of law. Your take on the wins for the Republicans that I don't think we've seen in a week span, Mark, in a long time.
Well, the core left is incapable of that kind of self-introspection. They really, I mean, the fact that for 4 years everybody with their eyes looked at Biden's failing health. I mean, February of 22, we had 68% of people saying that they wanted him to take a mental exam. Yeah. And then what did they spend 3-4 days over the weekend doing? Trying to convince everybody that Donald Trump had health issues.
No, that he was dead. He was dead.
Oh, yeah. And not only was he dead, they were wishing for him to be dead, which is something I don't recall ever doing about our former resident in chief. No. And so, they are in a really tough and a really dark spot. And, I think they're just going to try and keep throwing everything at the wall. They are using a very large toolbox in order to resist Trump. And they're losing, but it's like at least they're playing the game, right? They're out there trying to play the game. I don't know what Republicans are doing. They're like joining in with the Democrats, trying to rake RFK Jr. over the coals in front of the entire world in order to keep their pharmaceutical donors happy. Like that's what the Republicans are doing. So, I mean, I guess they're lucky because if the Republicans weren't so, the Democrats, if they weren't so perennially asinine, the Republicans would be like a super minority in this country.
Yeah, it's not all of them. It's guys like Bill Cassidy who are they're not really Republicans. They're rhinos. I say this all the time on the show. There's no such thing as a Republican Party anymore. It's the MAGA party. It's the party of rhinos. And on the left, you've got the Democrats, and then you've got the Marxist Democrats. And that's it. It's a 4-party system. So everyone who's complained about a 2-party system in America, there is no 2-party system. It's a 4-party system. You've got the rhinos and MAGA, and you've got the Democrats, and you've got the Marxist socialist Democrats. Speaking of socialist Democrats, I did a rant yesterday, Mark, and I didn't even mean to do it, but it just pissed me off so much. You're in the New York tri-state, and they've got
not this guy.
Don't mess with the Zohan. I mean,
you're going to get me in trouble again. I'm going to lose followers. I got a hot take on this one.
Donald Trump says he's given the Republicans and the party till Wednesday of next week to figure out what's going on before he steps into this race. Now, my whole rant was yesterday. I don't know if I want him to win or lose. And the point being is if enough people voted for this idiot, predominantly whites and Asians, if enough of them voted for this idiot, maybe it's what New York needs to correct itself. Yeah. Maybe it's what New York needs to have every single financial institution, with the exception of that idiot Jamie Dimon, who just built this monstrosity tax write-off. Maybe it's what they need, Mark. Maybe they need to go back. Maybe New York needs to go back and remember what happened during COVID to their real estate. Floors empty, buildings empty. They've got the most expensive taxes in this country. They've got the most expensive rent in this country. There's no incentive anymore. Back in the 80s, back in the 90s, Mark, there was a such thing as Wall Street. Now there's such thing as Zoom. Nobody needs to be on Wall Street anymore. Nobody needs to be in New York City anymore. Back in the day, Mark, guys used to travel for work. My father was away every single week traveling for work. Now you got Zoom. You've got whatever, Microsoft Teams. It's not the case anymore. There's no incentive, Mark, to stay in New York anymore. So why not let Mamdani win? Why not let this guy do what the people want him to do, Mark? That's my hot take.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I made a lot of people mad because I posted a picture of Gotham City from The Dark Knight Rises with the bridges blowing up. That's what it is. I said, 2027, Mamdani is mayor, and nobody's been into or out of the city since he was elected. And I'm watering my lawn, basically, is what my take on that one was. Yeah, they need to listen. There's a proverb, a burnt child fears the fire. And so if they're not afraid of communists enough, well, they need to dabble in it a little bit more. Listen, I like New York as much as the next guy. I lived there for a year. I worked there for lots of years, and it's been on the downslide. And you talk about COVID. Well, even before COVID, a lot of these new condo buildings that were getting built up were, 1/3 to a half empty. And why was it? Well, every wealthy oligarch around the world was using those things to launder cash into the United States of America. And so those stores were closing well before COVID, because basically what Manhattan has turned into is the world's largest office building. And like you said, there's no reason to go there anymore. And so it's like, okay, there will always be Times Square. We'll always have Bryant Park. But as far as I'm concerned, that city can go screw itself. I don't even know how many actual voters are there. Obviously, like, nobody turns up to vote. 90% of them are Upper West Side white, and Jewish liberals. That's what the city's political core is. So yeah, let the government take over the grocery stores. Let's see how that goes. Now, personally, I think the city government will probably keep him from doing anything really retarded. So I don't think it's as bad as everybody says.
I'm not sure.
Well, if that's the case, then New York City had it coming, Mom Donnie or no. It was just going to be whoever got in place to allow them to fulfill their utopia dreams, and fine. Yeah. Let it happen. They had it coming. They have to learn. But what Trump should not do in any way is help somebody who's been accused by many of being a serial killer, and also probably, accused of allegations of sexual assault. Yeah. Like, why are we helping that guy? That should not be the case. Yep. So if it's between a communist and somebody who's allegedly a murderer in the minds of many, I would go with the communist, quite frankly.
Yeah, and it's not that Cuomo's not a socialist either. You watch what he did during COVID and his draconian lockdowns. I'll never forget what he did with that bullshit where he made Trump bring in the ship, the army ship, screwed the whole thing up. He never wound up even using it. He put people on the ship who were sick when they weren't supposed to be on there, put the people who were sick in the Javits Center who weren't supposed to be in there, and it screwed the whole thing up. His draconian lockdowns. I mean, this was a man, give me a few days to slow the spread, this, and he lied all along the way. So just because Mom and Donnie wears it on his sleeve doesn't mean that Cuomo's not a socialist Marxist as well. I think he's certainly gotten his way there. His brother, I think, has gotten a little bit better towards the right, Chris Cuomo, the wannabe gangster, but Cuomo is not necessarily, a center-left Democrat. He's just as bad. So I think you're absolutely right. Why save this guy? This is what the people want. Don't interfere. Let them be. Yeah. And if Curtis Sliwa can beat him, he can beat him. If Mayor Adams can beat him, he can beat him. I personally think Mayor Adams should continue on with the job. I think New York has gotten a little bit better than what it was. Compared to what we had before, that was Mayor de Blasio, was a total psychopath. I think it's gotten a little bit better. His allowance of federal agents to interact with local law enforcement has gotten a little bit better. I think the life for cops have gotten a little bit better. So I'll take that any day over what you possibly can get with Cuomo.
Yeah. Well, personally, I also think they should send the National Guard in before that election even happens.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're going to keep doing it to more and more cities, and I'm here for it because I think, crime was one of the big issues of this election. A lot of people didn't talk about it because of the border invasion, but people are really upset about the increasing level of violent crime. And remember, the Democrats were the defund the police thing. Like, that's what really kicked this whole party off. It was, there was this mass formation around COVID, but then at the same time, like, that's when really the left reared its ugly head with Antifa. Cities burning down, people were upset about that. That's one of the reasons that America went back into the arms of Donald Trump.
Yeah. You mentioned big cities and the National Guard going in. We got word yesterday that ICE is now set to move in on Chicago, Illinois. I think Pritzker and the numbskull Brandon Johnson over there, I think they barked up the wrong bush. And I think Tom Homan is running most of this raid operation. Donald Trump has given him full control to run the operations. They're messing with the wrong guy. I know Tom Homan for a long time, and he is not going to back down. There's nothing that scares that guy. Donald Trump obviously doesn't give a damn what the Democrats say. And now at this point, he's trolling because these guys think that Donald Trump is going to listen to them. Newsom and Pritzker and Brandon Johnson think that Donald Trump is scared of them. This is a 78-year-old man that you put in handcuffs and you fingerprinted him. There's nothing that's going to scare him. This is a 78-year-old man who had a bullet whiz past his ear. If that didn't scare him, you think Jay Pritzker and Brandon Johnson are going to scare him? I don't think so.
These are petty tyrants. Narcissists with God complexes. These are people who, when they're in charge, will bend any rule and do anything, no scruples in order to maintain their political power. We saw that under the Biden administration, and you can say it was Biden. Well, it's also all the clowns he had working for him and all of the blue state Democrats that said, oh, I see how things are going. I like this. I like being Murphy, and I'm going to use an iron fist on my state when COVID rolls around. We saw it across the country. And the problem is that they're not in power, but all of those, governors with God complexes still are. You got Murphy still in office for a little bit. You got Pritzker, and what I think is, Newsom, obviously. I think what we see now is that they've learned that they can get a presence, virtue signal like this, stand up, resist Trump. But what we have is an unstoppable force hitting an immovable object here. Like if Trump says he's going to bring the National Guard in, he's going to do it. And you have Pritzker out there saying some really strong language about how he is going to resist that happening in Chicago. And so the reason I'm watching this very closely is because, as we've talked about many times before, I'm concerned with the level of violent rhetoric, what it's done to Americans, and how afraid they are of a future civil war. 43%. That's exactly what this is. We're talking about the federal government conflicting with the state government. Yeah. That's what this is. You know, whose jurisdiction, whose laws, who's going to win when somebody starts breaking laws? Who's going to interpret that, and how are the people going to interpret that? We could see this in a week or two when we have Humvees rolling down the street in Chicago. What's Pritzker going to do? Is he just going to roll over? Like, probably.
Metaphorically or physically?
Yeah, well, probably a little bit of both. I don't know what his personal life is like. I don't know if it's as weird as Tim Waltz's, but
I was talking about his personal appearance. But
oh yeah.
We played yesterday on the show. Him and Chris Christie sumo wrestling. So people probably I probably ruined a lot of people's week, and the people who are joining us on audio had the delight to not watch it. The lucky ones, but everyone who was here on video, they had to watch it. Let's turn to
that's a lot of sumo in 2 days. Did you see Eric Trump wrestled Yokozuna?
Yeah, I did.
That was cool.
I did. Let's turn to Mark. We've got a new analysis out from a Census Bureau audit, breaking nearly all errors from the 2020 census disproportionately hurt red states, with many undocumented and undercounted, many blue states overcounted. What does that mean? See, this is what annoys me the most, Mark, is that the Republicans have such a prime time right now to absolutely just slaughter the Democrats. In Missouri, I was reading yesterday, Missouri has a redistricting map that's going to get rid of, I think, their only Democrat seat, the way that it gets redistricted. That'll be a fully red state. The Republicans have such an opportunity right now. And what they're doing is they're riding the Democrats wrong. I don't think they're doing anything wrong. The Democrats have done this for years illegally. I think the Republicans are probably doing it the right way.
Yeah.
They have such a prime time right now to sweep the midterm elections and hold the office in 2028. And nothing illegal about it. This is them just correcting what the Democrats done. I think they find a way to somehow screw it up.
Well, yeah. This is the crux of what we've been talking about here and why I've been relatively unpopular. Everybody wants to follow me when I'm telling them that Trump's going to win an election. Right. Then they want to disappear when I say the Republicans are about to get screwed.
No, they say you're unhinged.
Well, yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of people huffing copium right now, and they say things like, oh, the Democrat Party's got super low favorability. Look at this Quinnipiac poll. It says they've got a 19% favorability rating. Well, those people can't predict elections. You can't use those numbers at all. And Trump will even use them. But no, Democrat favorability is lower than it's been, but it's not much less than Republicans. And so there's no advantage there. And Democrats still have a lot of other advantages on Republicans. Things like who is better at doing the things they say they're going to do, who cares more about people like me. The Democrats will still win on those kind of things. And unfortunately, voter enthusiasm, because both Republicans and Democrats will say to a pollster that they're going to show up and vote. But as we've seen in every special election, Republicans will not. So this is like there are two things that are true here at the same time. One is that the Democrats face utter long-term political irrelevance. They really do. Because you have, okay, well, if you look at redistricting, if Republicans are actually going to do that, the Republican maps have more room than the Democrat ones do to pick up additional seats. Then you have the 2030 census that's going to gauge all of the post-COVID migration when everybody was fleeing New York for Florida. That hasn't been counted yet. Then you have the errors in the 2020 election, which if they go and fix and get all the illegals out and fix all those errors, that's another 15, 20 seats. So we're talking about 30, 40, 50 seats in electoral votes the map will forever be changed. I think New York Times, did an expose on it where they showed, well, just if we fixed, I think they were looking at the 2030 census. Just from the 2030 census, it automatically shifts like 3 states in Republicans' favor. Yeah. And there's like many electoral paths to victory that the Democrats just don't have anymore. So yeah, the Democrats long term are absolutely screwed, and they're not running on popular things. But here's the other problem, is that they still have all their good maps now. They are still leading in the generic ballot. And if you look at like the Republicans are just missing in action. They're not really helping in any of these special elections. You just go ask Grok if you're watching this and ask it to rate how the DNC did versus how the RNC did in the Iowa state state legislature special election. And it'll rate the Democrats 9. It'll rate Republicans 3. They had to like raise money at the state level. They had to like there was no national machine at all. The Republicans don't have one. And this is the biggest, most unescapable fact. Yeah, in my final poll of November 2024, only 58% of Donald Trump's support came from Republicans.
Yeah, I saw that. You tweeted that yesterday. Yeah. I mean, it's very surprising. But you look at what the Republicans have put up with. And by the way, I've got that redistricting. It was the American Redistricting Project. I'm going to put it up on the screen here for everyone to see it, about what they forecasted for the 2030 forecast for the census. But the Republicans had Ronna McDaniel, and they put up with her for far too long. This was a woman who was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year at Staples. It was a lady who was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on black cars. I mean, and just wasting and bleeding money. This was what their 2030 forecast was.
Right. This is what I saw.
Project. Florida would gain 4. Texas would gain 4. Arizona would gain 1, and continuing up north up into Idaho. So you've got a net gain, a gain of 8, 9, 10, 11. And you've got a loss of 3 in California. You got to New York, you got to Illinois, you got to Minnesota. Yeah. So it looks like you're going to lose 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11. So it's a 21-point swing, right?
Yeah. Well, and again, that's on top of Seth Keshel did a report that said that he thought the 2020 census was 16 seats out of the Republicans. So we're talking about a lot of electoral representation. The Democrats, the chicken will come home to roost. But the problem is that this just backs the animal into the corner. That's the real problem. And history tells us that they're going to win this midterm. That's just what's supposed to happen. And so Donald Trump made a lot of promises, and he's trying his best. But at the end of the day, what people might remember after his presidency is that he didn't fulfill his promises. And all of the people in the Republican Party that enabled this to happen will all still be there. Like, that's the problem, is that everybody's, you got to rhino these, you got to primary these rhinos. That's not going to fix anything. Primary rhinos does not fix anything, because the people that make the decisions, like Ronna, who allocate the donor capital, that is the core of the Republican Party. And they have a nice, comfy little, gig for themselves. And they're not threatened. They don't care if Trump loses, because they still make their money. They are still on the gravy train if the Republicans are in the minority.
Yeah, and they ride off into the sunset. And you saw like Mike Gallagher from Wisconsin playing his little games. And I think he's on the board of Palantir right now. It's just the general sentiment. Joni Ernst, she's not leaving the Senate, because my work here is done. The work's never done, right? It's like, anyone who lives in New York, the construction on the streets, it's never done. It just moves. You finish one, and then you go back to what you started 20 years ago. It's a continuing cycle. The work is never done. But these rhinos and the Marxist Dems always find a way to line up their next job, Mark, their 7-figure jobs. Paul Ryan found a way to do it, and he went over to Fox News and absolutely destroyed that network. That network is, it's better than the rest, according to the ratings, but their ratings are still down 50% from where they were.
Let me give my analogy. I think your audience will appreciate this, because this is a unique take I have, because I see people say it all the time. You got to primary the rhinos. And it's like, okay, that's valid. That's laudable. But here's why that won't fix things. So imagine the Republican Party like the investors on Shark Tank. Okay. Those people are trying to pick products candidates that will find a market that the viewers, the consumers will purchase, will vote for. Okay. Who do those people represent? Those are the big wigs at the top of the RNC, the NRCC, the RGA, the NRSC, the state party chairs, all of these people. It's a very big and complex organization. They've been around. They think they know more than you. They have a lot of instincts. They've launched a lot of candidates. And so they're the ones that are the decision makers. Now they have all these backers, the big money. That's coming from like foundations, the Koch brothers, big political action committees. It's all establishment money. It's people that want open borders. It's people that don't want accountability for criminal activity. It's people that want crony capitalism. Now, if they get a MAGA candidate on the show, like that's wild because there's a lot of wickets. There's a lot of like check valves that only flow one way to make sure that a very sanitized, moderate feeling candidate, they want to invest in something they're familiar with that already has a track record. It might already have money behind it. Right. The less work they have to do, the better. And so if you get a MAGA candidate on the Shark Tank show, the investors are going to be like, well, I don't know what to do with this. And, oh, that's risky. And I got to de-risk this. And we can't do that. Our backers wouldn't like that. Oh, we got to figure they can't talk like that. And it's like, okay, well, if you are in the Republican Party and you want to play ball with the big national organizations, not have them fight you, you got to look, act, feel, and talk like all the other candidates. And so maybe those guys succeed. Maybe they go to Washington, D.C., but at the end of the day, they've become an arm of this new big organization. You're part of Mr. Wonderful. He owns part of you now, right? And then what's the voter is the person watching TV at home. They really don't care what you think. They just expect you to buy whatever product they shill and they push. And so any way you've heard, like, oh, what does primary rhinos means? That means you, dear viewer on TV, are going to run around and try and get a new candidate on the show only to have it sunk by these people who are out for themselves and not at all for any principles. They're trying to build a business. Yeah. So, like, John, name me one other way you've heard that you could fix this thing. The analogy proved them all incapable. Oh, we just need more Scott Presslers. They love Scott Pressler. He's out there trying to sell the product for him. They're not going to give him any money, though. That's not good business. It's like, oh, well, it was an act of God. They got Ronna McDaniel out. But who did they put there? Somebody that came from like one of the other investors. Like that's, it was not an outsider. So maybe that's a black pill for people, but
I think there's some provisions you could put into place that may change things up a little bit, that can go along with, if primarying people is the right outlet. It's expensive and it's very difficult to primary somebody who's sat there for years, and it's very, very, very unsuccessful most of the time. I mean, we did see, Eric Cantor lose his seat, one of the most powerful men in Washington, D.C. to a primary, but it's very, 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 very hard to do. AOC, is another one. Whatever. You go down a list, you can, pick a few of these people that have, primary people. But I think if you add in some provisions, right, and it will be things that Congress would have to do themselves, so it'd be very difficult. But if you mount a pressure campaign, as we see, pressure campaigns are the only thing that works, I think, in the times of now. And you try to take the corporate money out of politics. You take the lobbying money out of politics. You make it illegal. If you you ban stock trading for all members of Congress. I think if you put provisions in like that, Mark, it'll make this job a lot less desirable for some of these scumbags who are in there right now, who are making crap tons of money on the backs of the American people while everyone else suffers. Like we watched during COVID, everyone lost money except for members of Congress in the broad sense. I think if you start to put provisions in like this, it'll take more people like Joni Ernst. It'll take more people like Mike Gallagher and say, you know what? Now is my time to go be a scumbag in the private sector. Let's let this ship go on. And I think we're seeing a little bit of a shift with some of the people that ran. Now, this isn't a good example, but someone like George Santos. George Santos wasn't a political guy, came in, was an outsider. Now, a flawed man. We're all flawed. I'm not defending what he did, but just an example. You've got Mark Teixeira, former Yankees MLB World Series winner, who's now running for Congress down in Texas. Doesn't know probably a thing about politics, but maybe that's what we need. We need people who are untainted by what has been.
Well, yeah, in the analogy, that's a product that just built itself. They didn't use the National Republican Organization. They didn't go on Shark Tank, and there are certainly people like that. And there are also people that go through the whole process and get to DC and actually keep their scruples. But I think the vast majority of them, they just get to the town and there's a certain operating manual. There's a certain way that these products are supposed to look and run. And what you're asking for is to change the rules so the products operate differently. And, imagine you are a MAGA candidate, you get this backing from the National Party somehow, and you get there, and it's like, okay, well, this isn't like I'm begging for $5 million from Pfizer that's going to a PAC that I'm not supposed to coordinate. This is like John Thune, literally the CEO of Pfizer personally donated him, wrote a check, and a lot of other CEOs did it as well. So you can't even say keep the corporate money out of politics. It's going to get there. But here's the thing is that if you asked him, what would he say about that? He would say, well, what do you want me to do? Not win? Like, I need this money to win. And don't you want to win? And yet at the same time, it's like, look at what we're seeing. We're seeing one individual potentially being tried for mortgage fraud. But I bet you every single person down there in Washington, D.C. has multiple products that are multiple properties that are all primary residences. It's like they literally get a handbook when they show up. This is how you survive in Washington, D.C. And I don't have a lot of hope that those rules can change. And I don't want to be a doomer, but I'm just saying, like, all of the solutions I've heard, term limits aren't going to work either. That just means that the products have an expiry date and they got to find a new one faster. That's all. It makes the machine more powerful. And so the only working theory I have is that there needs to be basically a billionaire who doesn't want to use their money for leverage. That's how it has to happen. And they've got to build a competing show. That's what they have to do. They got to build Shark Tank 2 on another network and build a shadow RNC that does things right. Because we all know Ronna McDaniel was like, what did she do with that $250 million? All of these scumbags down in DC, this consultant class, took their little sacks of cash and were laughing at all those people that donated that money because of election integrity. It's gross.
Yeah, it's a travesty. It's absolutely disgusting. But this is, I guess, the new reality of what it's been, man. And we're stuck with them. I want to get your take. I played this clip yesterday on yesterday's show of Rand Paul absolutely pissed off that Donald Trump would blow up a ship full of Venezuelan drug lords transporting drugs to this country. Let's roll it.
Of that cartel boat, which, I personally think that's a brilliant deterrent to this kind of activity. Is that how you see it?
I guess, it's hard to have any sympathy for drug dealers, trying to import product into our country. But at the same time, I guess you might ask the question, where does it end? Are we the world's policemen, the international policemen? Are we going to be blowing people up off the coast all around the world trying to interdict? Really, I'm not sure we have the finances to be the world's policemen. So on the face of it, sounds good. Nobody's going to have any kind of lost love for a bunch of drugs going down in the ocean and killing some gang members. But at the same time, really, where does it end? And is it really the constitutional duty of our government to be, policing international drug trade everywhere around the world?
It's things like that make you think, how stupid can these people be, Mark? Is it America's responsibility to protect the homeland? I went through these numbers yesterday. The CDC says 80,000 people, died last year of drug overdoses. We know that's a lot higher than that. Those are only 80,000 people who were autopsied. Everyone else, who died of a drug overdose on the side of the road, or I gave the example, you walk into your child's room and there's a pill bottle next to their bed or there's a needle next to their bed. You don't have to put yourself through the agony of putting them through an autopsy to know that they overdosed on something, right? So you got 80,000, in my opinion, well over 100,000. The CDC also says 55,000 of those deaths were from fentanyl. So it's probably closer to 75,000 of those deaths are from fentanyl. You've got guys like Rand Paul. So the numbers are over 100,000, maybe 200. I don't know. I don't know how many go uncounted for on no autopsy. Then you've got guys like Rand Paul comparing pretty much Donald Trump blowing up drug lords to us invading Iraq, saying we're the world police. The two don't go together. This is protecting our homeland, our children, our loved ones from potentially snorting fentanyl instead of cocaine by accident. Not saying you should be doing cocaine, but that seems to be the trend of what happens with some of these people who get it with fentanyl or heroin or whatever. He's saying we shouldn't be doing it. We can't afford to be doing it, but we can afford everything else. Is that right, Rand Paul?
The libertarians. I'm a fan of principles, and I think that our country was founded on Western Judeo-Christian principles. And really long term, I think we'll find that that's the only way this works. Mm-hmm. Because how do any of these organizations that we entrust our natural rights to, how are they kept, above board? How do we know that they're being managed with principle? You really don't at the end of the day. And that's the reason we're in this institutional trust crisis, is because most of the people that manage us are scumbags. It would be great if a lot more of them were Christian, and that's probably not a perfect fix. At the end of the day, though, it's nice to know that there are liberal principles that people care about. And so the Libertarian Party cares a lot about those. The problem is that also in practice, their policies don't make a ton of sense. I just had a libertarian say, it's all so screwed up. We just need to have complete chaos and let free market capitalism reign. Okay, well then, you know what? Amazon and Google are going to own everything. Say hi to your new overlords. And so I don't think that those principles necessarily work either. Look at the slippery slope that happened after gay weddings, right? Now it's like totally different situation. And so the problem is that it's sloppy, it's messy, and a lot of times people's rights conflict with each other. And let's not forget that Dick Cheney ordered airliners, civilian airliners, shot down. Well, those people have natural rights. And we said, no, you know what? Well, we had to make a decision, and we were going to kill people. And, so sometimes those rights conflict. But in this particular situation, I think that one of the burdens you bear as somebody who's going to be the salient person arguing for certain principles, and this is okay, well, everybody on earth has a right to due process. Well, I don't agree with that at all. Yeah. Okay, well, maybe we have to declare war. Okay, well, maybe you're getting a little bit better, but Trump designated these people as foreign terrorists, right? So it's is that enough? Probably. But the problem is I don't think he's even right here. I think that this was a flagless, stateless vessel in international waters that under certain circumstances, you're actually maybe even compelled to destroy. You know what I mean? Does he know that? Did he look that up? I don't know if he knows that or not. And so
here's the funny part about it. He didn't even know where it was coming from. And then I guess maybe Marco Rubio, who's I think perhaps the hardest, not perhaps, is the hardest working man in this cabinet right now. Second to Donald Trump, obviously being the president, went out to clarify the statements over down in South America. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
The United States has long, for many, many years, established intelligence that allow us to interdict and stop drug boats. And we did that. And it doesn't work. Interdiction doesn't work because these drug cartels, what they do is they know they're going to lose, 2% of their cargo. They bake it into their economics. What will stop them is when you blow them up, when you get rid of them. The President of the United States is going to wage war on narco-terrorist organizations. This one was operating in international waters, headed towards the United States to flood our country with poison. And under President Trump, those days are over.
And it wasn't a one-off. Rubio says strikes like these will happen again.
So it's apparent. He was pointing at Rand Paul with that, saying that ship was on its way to America. And I misspoke there. He was down in Mexico speaking, on its way to America. So even him taking that into account, Rand Paul there, he was very nonchalant. Well, I don't know if it was going towards America. I guess if it was, and I guess maybe you have an obligation that perhaps you could blow it up because perhaps there's fentanyl in there. Perhaps that fentanyl could kill someone's kid, or perhaps it might end up on the streets, or perhaps it might put a few $1 billion more into the pockets of the cartels. Perhaps you get some Venezuelan F-16s circling our Navy ships. Perhaps that might happen. Yeah. What?
You know what I did too? I actually pulled up the Rob Schmidt interview with Rand Paul just because I wanted to see Rob Schmidt's face after Rand Paul said that stuff, and it was hilarious. It's definitely worth. I mean,
how does Rob sit there with a straight face and not look at this guy? And I think he was trying to, Rob.
He was.
Listen, Senator, in the most respectful way possible, you are an idiot. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, he was nice, but you could tell that he was like, what is coming out of this guy's mouth? Yeah, good job, Rubio. Rubio's knocking it out of the park. Our country's going to be safe. We haven't polled on this one. Maybe we should. But this idea that violent narco terrorists have any rights is not popular. Like, it's just not, right? We had, I think we had 80% of people who thought it was important that violent crime members be sent back to their countries of origin. So, I think that Trump should do a lot more of this stuff. Listen, if Congress isn't going to act, make the Democrats defend narco terrorists. Like, just do it,
Yeah. And they do, but it's the Republicans too, Mark. That's the thing. The Democrats are so united, and I feel like a broken record, honestly, because it seems like we have the same dialect every time, but nothing changes. The Republicans are just always find a way to do something stupid. And I always looked at Lou, and I was like, maybe you're being a little bit too hard on the Republicans. And then as I worked by his side every single day for 5 years, Mark, hand in hand, hand in glove. And spoke to the man for 5 hours a day, every single day, 365 days a year. and slowly I watched myself morph into Lou Dobbs. Obviously, nobody could ever match the man, and I wish you had got to meet him. But I slowly watched myself morph into this man who hates everybody, literally, but, just dislikes all of these politicians. And I said this yesterday. It's the reason why I really don't have many politicians on this show anymore. There's a few that I really, really like, and those are the ones I bring on. Burchett, Comer, to name two of them. Two great people, I think, through and through. But I'm just so sick and tired of these people. And I don't mean to be negative, because people hate negative. But
no, I mean, it's all performative except for a few of them. There's a few good eggs. Everybody else is as bad as you think it is. And we've seen this, and this is what you and I have been ripping on. We talked about Tom Tillis on this show as well. And it's obvious. Ed Martin goes up for nomination. Tom Tillis sinks the Ed Martin nomination. Why? Tom Tillis is backed by pharma, and Ed Martin came out in support of Trump's most favored nation pricing policy on pharma, which Tom Tillis came out against. And so, that's the problem, is that this organization resists a principled takeover, as every organization does. And I just got in a big a discussion with Eric Weinstein on Twitter about this, and I don't know what the solution is. I'm trying to keep a list, and as far as I know, it's like, okay, benevolent billionaires, a messy fourth turning crisis, maybe a civil war or revolution, or end times. Like, that's the list. Like, that's what's going to bail us out of our situation of institutional trust. I don't know what else it is.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bed sheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
My favorite thing about these people, Mark, someone like Tillis will take a vote like that, or they'll stifle somebody, they'll stop somebody, and then 3 months later, 2 weeks later, a week later, they announce their resignation. They don't even have the intestinal fortitude to stand on what they just did. They hit and they run. They're cowards. Nancy Mace gets a bad rap. She went against Donald Trump on impeachment the first time around. And you know what? To her credit, I disagree with her completely on it, but to her credit, she ran again, and she fought the tough fight that she had to fight. Her taking the impeachment vote on the first, supporting the impeachment, was absolutely retarded. It was so stupid, and she's an idiot for doing that. But she learned her lesson. And you know what? She didn't run. She didn't vote for impeachment and then run like Ken Buck did. She didn't vote for impeachment and then run like the rest of them did. She voted for it, I think she acknowledged that she was wrong and stupid for doing it. She ran her election. Donald Trump didn't support her, supported a primary challenger, beat her, and she retained her seat. And now she's back on the MAGA wagon. But these people aren't like that. She's got more testimony than some of these guys who hit and run. Tillis, like you said, the latest one to do it.
Yeah, I think this is basic stuff. I mean, if the thread I think that runs through all of my polling and why so much more on the Trump issues is stronger majorities. Like, this isn't the 50-50 country where only half of it voted and half of that voted blue and half of that voted red. And it's just because they disagreed about how to frame the question about entitlement reform, or everything had reform at the end of it. Remember that? Like 20 years ago, that's what everybody ran on. Oh, I'm going to reform it like this. Well, I'm going to reform it like that.
Or Obama went with change.
Yeah. Well, like now what everybody realizes is that this system is fundamentally unfair, and Americans want fairness. If you ask the questions we've seen that have had the 95% majorities are all things about fairness. Like, can that person have a different set of rules than you? No, that's not fair. And I think Americans also know the difference between, I think, mistakes and being completely corrupted. And so you're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to change your mind. And it's wild to me how much of MAGA doesn't understand this. Like, people make mistakes. A lot of people were against Trump, changed their mind, came out with valid reasons why they changed their mind, and are now on board. But it's like, okay, well, if you're just going to drift with the wind and make decisions and do performative stuff, like, ultimately it comes down to, if you've sold your integrity, like, you can't really get that back. You know what I mean? And so I think that what we're seeing is that most of the people have done that, and they can't in this new paradigm of media, social media, like the Twitter stuff, like, they're going to get destroyed. Like, I think that politicians are not aware of how majorly things have changed. And I think Tom Tillis would have been fine 20 years ago doing this kind of stuff. And I think most of the people in Congress and the Senate are still operating with that mindset. You're not going to be able to hide from this stuff anymore. People will see through you. Just look at, again, all of the influencers that just got discovered taking money from the Indian lobby.
We're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it.
Well, that's a good segue.
Because a news story just came out. But before we move on to that, I just had to pull up here because I wanted to pull up some of these people about, righting the wrong. I mean, J.D. Vance came out in 20, whatever year it was. It was 2016. He called Donald Trump a moral disaster, possibly America's Hitler. You had him going after Donald Trump and Marco Rubio going after each other about hand sizes and sizes of other things.
Right.
You had Donald Trump going out there telling Ted Cruz's father that he assassinated. I mean, you go down the list of some of these people. Ted Cruz is now one of his staunch supporters. Marco Rubio is turning out to be one of the greatest Secretary of States this country's ever seen and one of Trump's biggest loyalists. Okay. Kasich never got on board. Ben Carson, around the first time, absolutely adored by President Trump. Jeb Bush, he had a little bit of a rough time. Rand Paul, another one we just spoke about, a little bit of a rough time. Mike Huckabee, ambassador to Israel right now. Chris Christie was another one who had a very tough time. Rick Santorum made amends with President Trump. So, you go down the list of these people who have, most of them have righted the wrong. Now, I guess we can't really hold people to account who said all these bad things about Donald Trump if he's not going to hold them to account. And, just using, for example, some of these people who said this. Donald Trump is a very forgiving person to his own demise. I think in some instances, if you look at things like Mitt Romney and what he did to President Trump, I think he's still upset that Donald Trump trolled him about the Secretary of State job. Can you imagine how bad things would have been if he had him as Secretary of State? But he's made amends with some of these people, and they corrected. Some of them have corrected, beyond belief, in my opinion, and maybe that's what it took.
I think if you publicly don't support Trump at this point, then you probably can't for some reason. If you're a politician, I think it played out like this.
Well, I don't care about the public support, Mark, so much. When you've got these guys stabbing in the back behind closed doors.
Again, I think everybody stabs everybody in the back in politics down in D.C. And I think I think the public is going to be less tolerant of that. Let me frame Trump this way, is that, Trump came onto the scene with a different set of political promises, which was, hey, we're going to put America first. And I think a lot of people in politics didn't believe him.
Yes.
And a lot of voters did. And that's why he got elected to be the president the first time. And it's like, I can understand if in 17, 18, 19, and 20, you were like, I don't get Trump. I think he's probably doing what I do, which is just make a bunch of lies up, try and convince people to vote for you. But then it's like, okay, after COVID, after the border invasion, after January 6th Fedsurrection, and then after people stuck with Donald Trump through all of that, and then they weaponized the Department of Justice after him.
Yeah.
If at that point you can't find your way to publicly understand that Donald Trump wasn't lying about caring about voters first, and voters know it. And so if you are not supporting him, you probably should have a good reason if you're on the right.
Yeah.
And I think the people that don't, it can probably be assumed that they're owned by somebody.
Yep. Who's the guy who's running for, I'm trying to find it here. The guy who's running for, I guess, is he running for the Senate or he's running for the governorship down in Georgia, who just came out and said behind closed doors, Donald Trump, there's no doubt in my mind, Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. If that's what you believe, be a man, come out and say it in the public domain. What you say behind closed doors, be a man and come out and say it to the domain. If that's what you believe. Because if you believe that and Donald Trump is in the Epstein files and he's this terrible of a person, you could never support him because that would make him a horrible person if he's implicated in sort of bad things. So you're sitting here telling me, oh, well, this guy's a rapist, he's a pedophile, but I still want his support. Say what you mean and mean what you say is what Lou Dobbs used to tell me all the time. Say what you mean and mean what you say. And these guys are a bunch of cowards. Now he'll go back at what's his name? He's from Georgia. He's got white hair. I'm going to have to look it up. But goes behind the scenes and has all this to say. And then he's probably the next week up Donald Trump's rear end. And this is what I meant to you when I said, I'd rather them be Trump behind closed doors than out here cheerleading for pom-poms, because that's the real person you get behind the scenes.
Americans don't operate that way. Like, they don't cozy up to people that they think are literally offenders, right? Like, that's not the way it operates. And it seems like it's just, it's just the normal mode of function in politics.
Mike Collins is his name. Mike Collins, who's, I guess, running for, what is he running for? He's either running for governor or he's running for the Senate. They call him MAGA extremist on GeorgiaDemocrat.org. MAGA extremist Rep. Mike Collins believes Trump is, quote, in the Epstein files, and he wants them made public. And
he's got a mullet.
Hey, I kind of do too. This is a what they call a Collins hot mic misstep. No, it's not a misstep. It's just showing who you are.
Yeah, it's a mask off. The same thing. Yeah, the same thing that Vivek did on Twitter with the H-1Bs.
We're gonna get
mask off moment. Now we all know what you stand for. Sorry.
Exactly.
And he does stand for other stuff, but it's like it was, now people question everything that you support.
As they should, Mark. And you know what? It's probably easy. I may be being a little bit too harsh, but it's probably easy for you and I to say because we're not politicians. We probably never will be, although I've had a lot of people try to court me to run for various seats from Congress to borough president to city council. I don't think I could ever bring myself to doing it because I can't lie. I have a very hard time lying with a straight face, and I have a very hard time consciously lying to somebody, even about the dumbest things. But these people do it with a straight face, and they sort of get this demonic cloak that comes over them, and it changes them as a person. And I'm not entirely sure I'd ever want that to happen to me. Actually, I'm positive I never want that to happen to me. It takes a certain kind of person to run for office, and there are very select few who don't fit this narrative. But it takes a very, very big transformation for you to become a politician. That it's not for everyone.
I don't think you can truly succeed without lying, unfortunately. And there are people that get in and do succeed and somehow don't. But I'm not a liar, and I couldn't do it. I'm the world's worst liar.
Yeah,
there's no way.
It was the same reason. They tried to court Lou Dobbs to run think your buddy Steve Bannon tried to get him to run for president. And back in, I guess it was maybe 06, they tried to get him to run for president. And, he told me he never entertained it. I'm sure in his mind he probably did, but his wife said, hell to the no, you're not running for president. We've got this horse farm out in Sussex, New Jersey. You're not going anywhere. And then when I first met him, I said to him, what's wrong with you? You should run for governor of New Jersey. I said, you have the name recognition and you'd absolutely win. And his wife used to just a wonderful woman, Debbie used to.
Yeah, he would have won in 21.
Oh, he 100%. That was the year of Citarella, who, was not
and
really
three.
back. Right.
Yeah.
So, but he never had it. And I think it was because of that. He can never look at somebody in the eye and lie to them. He was probably the most truthful person I've ever worked for.
Yeah.
But he could never look.
If you're going to be in the governor of New Jersey, then you're at some point going to have a run-in with the mob as part of the problem.
And you probably get gold bars put in your pocket.
Yeah.
But no, it definitely does take a sort of narcissist to do these jobs. Nobody does it for the money because you can make a lot more money if you have a brain in the private sector. Let's turn to something that I think is probably going to tickle your fancy. The number of foreign-born workers in the United States has declined by nearly 1 million since President Donald Trump took office in January, reversing a trend that had driven much of the country's growth in 2024, according to Labor Department data that was released today. The foreign-born population dropped by about 2 million people between January and August, from 50.5 million to 48.5 million, while employment among foreign-born workers fell by 1 million over the same period, according to this government data. The decline represents a stark turnaround from 2024, when the foreign-born workforce expanded by more than 2 million people. Now, this comes out, Mark, coincidentally, as just minutes ago, President Trump is reportedly mulling a proposal that prevents tech firms from outsourcing all of their workers to where?
India?
Bang. There you go.
Yeah.
Jeopardy.
I love it. They just need to slap a tariff on call centers and automatically.
No.
Well, I worked for Walmart. As people who follow your show might know, I led a team of 100 people trying to fix problems with their customer experience, their order experience. So this doesn't happen to people who buy only on Amazon, but when you buy from Walmart, there's like a pretty good chance they're going to screw something up with your order. It's not going to come on time. They're going to send you the wrong item. They're going to not trigger important emails. They're going to charge you twice, like all these different kinds of things. Roughly, between 30 and 50% of all of the orders, and we knew because I measured it, had a problem with them. They had a 12% contact rate. That means out of all of the orders, 12% of them generated a call to a call center.
By the way, Mark, I think Amazon's is less than 1%.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's like 0.1%.
There you go.
12% of all orders on Walmart e-commerce, the second largest e-commerce website in America. Each one of those contacts costs Walmart $4. And that's with having 6,000 people in the Philippines who barely can speak English, who are reading a script, who are wasting your time. So you might think you found the cheapest price on Walmart, but when you price in your time that you have to spend to fix your order by talking to somebody in the Philippines, the numbers are staggering. Yeah. That's literally part of their business model. They have Indian engineers coding insufficient enterprise solutions for their order flow, and then they outsource the resolution of those problems to the Philippines. And so I worked with those engineering teams. I know that they find problems and sweep them under the rug. I know that they try and make it look like somebody else's fault. I know that they only hire themselves. This is the most nepotistic culture I've ever seen. And I saw how it played out at Walmart. It plays out like this in every other company. Somebody from Bangalore says, we're going to help you cut your engineering costs. Well, we're going to open up an engineering center in Bangalore. And then they say, well, it needs to be led by an Indian VP. And then they're like, well, we're having a hard time communicating with them. We need an Indian VP here as well. Oh, well, we need to bring one of these teams over. Oh, we need to bring some of these teams over. Oh, and then all those people just start hiring Indians in San Francisco. And so soon you have an Indian chief technology officer, a layer of Indian senior vice presidents, a layer of Indian vice presidents, and all of a sudden your engineering center in San Bruno, California is 95% Indian men. And there's lots of sexual harassment that happens. There, you have no chance of getting a job in there. And no, there's no cap. There's no limit to what these people get paid. They get paid just the same as anybody else. And you have to hire two of them because their engineering is so bad because they don't believe in UAT testing and quality assurance. So that's my experience with outsourcing. They literally, it's a scam. It's one more way in which Americans get screwed.
I think there's been some reports out that they're testing their standardized testing numbers. They lie about how smart and how well they perform on their standardized testing before coming over to America. I got to pull that report. The 12% number.
Not everything's a grift.
Yeah,
if you follow the rules, if you believe in Judeo-Christian principles and follow the rules in America, you're the sucker. Because so then you have like people on visas or people here legally even, from what I understand, using earpieces and translators to pass the commercial driver's license exams so they can go out and kill Americans on the highways.
Yep. Only to, what was the line from the Bronx Tale? The working man is a sucker. And it's sad, but it's true. 12% is absolutely insane. Going back to Amazon, Amazon has this thing down to a T. I think you said 0.01% or 0.1%. Is absolutely amazing. But if you look at their numbers, Amazon doesn't make their money. I never knew this until I looked at their financial statements. No. The bulk of their money is not made. Their profit margins on stuff, they probably lose money between their Amazon Prime shipping and their product margins being so slim because they have the cheapest price anywhere you can get on things. Their money's not made on there. That's sort of like a luxury to them. Their money's made on their web hosting services. AWS is where they're making most of their money right now. It's very, very slim margins. But they get it right, and they do such a good job at it. And if you have a problem with your Amazon thing, you go on the Amazon, boop, 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 boop. I ordered shampoo, and it was open. No problem. Keep that shampoo. We'll send you a new one tomorrow. I mean, losing money. The return. I have a friend who owns a store, Mark. I don't know if you know these exist. I don't know if they exist outside of New York. All of Amazon's returns, Amazon obviously probably takes them as a tax write-off, but they sell at a wholesale price in bulk to these stores. And I have a friend who owns one. And I mean, some of the stuff that comes into these stores, I've gotten gun scopes, I've gotten Bose headsets. I mean, crazy stuff because they take everything back. Their customer service, from what I understand, is mostly here in America, and it is absolutely unmatched.
Well, they immediately find if anything goes wrong, and they have a process to fix it. This is a perfect example of organizational design and systems thinking, and that's why Amazon succeeded. Because I actually saw Walmart hire a bunch of Amazon people to try and fix Walmart's crap, and they failed very rapidly. Wow. Everybody's like, oh, they work for Amazon. They're so smart. No, the organization was just designed well in the beginning. They set it up the right metrics. They have the right feedback loops into place, the right teams are connected and managed the right way so that if a problem gets found, it gets rapidly root caused and fixed. And so they design a system that doesn't need 6,000 people in the Philippines, to be frank with you. But here, again, is proof why I think the libertarians are just dead wrong about everything. Is because, look, Amazon has built a company that can't be competed with. It has excellent delivery. It's got prices nobody's going to be able to compete with. And it's got a returns experience and customer experience nobody can compete with. And it's all subsidized by Amazon Web Services. That needs to be broken up. How are you going to have any creative destruction is literally everybody going to buy everything from Amazon in 10 years? Like, is that where we're going? There's not going to be any stores at all in America. We're not going to have like aspiring retail entrepreneurs like setting up stores in strip malls, and they're not going to be able to because everybody's going to go to Amazon. You got to destroy that crap. You got to split it in half. And you know what? The fact that Amazon exists has like a really big part of the reason why every manufacturing job in America got outsourced to China. Like all the stuff you buy, like literally. Try and find a good Amazon product that's still American. I like Weber grills. I don't know where that's like one of the last ones I've ever seen. For some reason, China has started manufacturing everything except for Weber grills. It's like, nope. If you look for charcoal grill, there's still a Weber grill on Amazon. Everything else is like they put an American product up. It gets stolen by the lowest cost producer in China. They manufacture it 95% as well, and it's not a problem because of Amazon's return experience.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's truly a business model that, like I said, is, there's not big profit margins on it, but they're somehow staying afloat, and Jeff Bezos somehow finds a way to pay for his yacht and his wife. It's really, as we're sitting here, I just got a text, Mark.
Well, he doesn't have to make a profit. That's what, what I mean? Like, and part of this is because public companies have a massive advantage too. I don't think public companies should exist. That's how crap like Cracker Barrel happens, is because they're trying to make short-term profit motivated decisions, and they're not caring about the long-term success of the business, long-term shareholder capital growth. They don't care about that.
I think you and I argued about this on the ride to Washington, D.C. for 4 hours about and I think we disagreed on it about.
Well, Goldman Sachs wasn't 10x levering detranche commercialized debt obligations back when it was a private partnership. They were making like conservative bets. They were building a real business. The second that they have a public backstop, then they get into like the synthetic credit default swap orgies. Like that's what they do. And that's what everybody does. And you know what? Like Jeff Bezos too. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't have to turn a profit. I don't know if they pay a dividend or not, but it's like if the public equities are going to support him in every endeavor, why shouldn't he do it? And that's how he probably owns shipping companies in order to save 3 cents on each order. He probably controls controls massive amounts of like the fuel industry. Like who knows how vertically integrated this guy is, because nobody says, well, you know what? Like it's good. You did a good job, but it's like, let's try and create some creative destruction here. And that's the most anti-libertarianism thing I could say, but it's true. There's crony capitalism, and unchecked. Now we have a 21% of our GDP goes to healthcare costs. Good job. Got to fix that, or our republic is done. We can't figure out how to cut healthcare costs in America in half. And yes, that means closing a ton of hospitals and firing a ton of doctors. It has to happen. Pfizer should probably not be multi-trillion, however big Pfizer is, probably shouldn't have that sector of our economy be as big as it is, because it all gets paid by the government and we can't afford it.
Yeah, and you know what? A big part of it, in my opinion, and I think probably statistically, is waste, fraud, and abuse. So they have nobody to thank but themselves for overcharge. Yeah. I mean, the healthcare
subsidized in the whole world too. Pharmaceutical costs are subsidized in the whole world.
Absolutely, especially when we can't make our own Tylenol here in America, or Advil in America, or whatever sort of drug that you have to take. I get face cream from a dermatologist, made in India, made in Canada. I mean, it's just a shame, and it's such a disgrace that these American companies have been allowed to get away with this so long.
We should manufacture almost everything we want, and yes, that means that you can't have everything.
You know what, Mark? I was having lunch at a restaurant with a friend who owns a restaurant last week, and I was just sitting with him at the bar having lunch. And this is the sentiment of these people, and it pissed me off so much. He said to me, he goes, "How could I run this restaurant?" He asked me, he said, "Do you think ICE is coming here?" And I said, "I hope so, to clear out the restaurant and everyone around it." And I said, "I hope so." He goes, "What do you mean you hope so?" I said, "We've gotten ourselves in this situation, and it's only going to get worse if we allow this to happen." I said, You've got guys working back there that are illegal. You've got guys that are working back there with fake papers. I can guarantee it. And I said to him, he goes, "Well, they're giving me papers." I go, "And they're fake." Yep. And I said, because it pisses me off. And, some of these people have been in this country 20, 30 years working. They have kids in this country. I said, that's not my problem. Tell that to the guy who went to Ellis Island. Tell that to the guy who came to this country and spent $100,000 to get papers, to have to open business, or whatever you had to do to get papers. I have a friend who's going through the process right now. It's cost him so far $25,000. He's here on a visa, on a green card, and he's working to get a visa for 2 years. I think it's cost him like $20-something thousand with his lawyers. He's doing it the right way. Guess what? His visa expires in 2 months, Mark. You know what he said to me? I said to him, I won't say his name. I said, "Whatever you do, don't overstay your visa." He goes, "Absolutely not." He goes, "If that expires before this happens, I'm going back to Europe." He's from Europe. "I'm going back to Europe, and I'll start the process again." Why is it fair that someone like that respects this country and the orders and the law, border, and orders, but someone from Mexico or Honduras or Guatemala can come here for 20 years, have a kid and a whole family? So going back to the story, I said to him, I said, "I hope they come here, because it needs to happen ever." And he goes, "I'll have to close my business." And I said, "Then so be it. You know what? 25 years ago, restaurants survived without hiring illegals.
Yeah.
Construction companies survived without hiring illegals. And guess what? When you leave the New York tri-state or you leave California, middle America, there's overwhelming majority of them. There's not illegals in kitchens. It's kids who are in high school. It's kids who are in college. And I said, you know what? I said, you'll have to pay an extra $5 an hour, $4 an hour. It ain't going to kill you because your prices are so high to begin with already. So you know what? Your profit margin comes down a little bit and you pay an American worker. That's how it's got to be.
Yeah, we started early in the show talking about institutional trust, and now we're talking about like literally integrity in society. And it's like, you kind of feel for him. It's like, yeah, if he can't compete unless he breaks the rules. And so we live in a society where every freaking person has to break the rules in order to, and what kind of world are we trying to like raise our kids up to be principled?
What's not fair, Mark? You and I don't break the rules. You and I pay our taxes every year, honestly. You and I report on every single dollar, at least me. I'm sure you do because you're a man with high integrity. We report on every dollar we make. Someone who's hiring illegals is not reporting every dollar. I'll tell you why. Because cash is coming in the register and it's going back out the register to pay these people. That's how you escape the system. Okay. So they're underreporting their taxes. And the reason I know this is because I have a boss who went to jail for it, a former congressman who went to jail for it, underreporting taxes, tax evasion, and they get you at wire fraud and mail fraud, however you paid them. If you paid them by a check, it's mail fraud. If you paid them by a wire, it's, whatever. That's how I know. So why is it fair for you and I to come to work every single day and every dollar we make is paid? And that's fine. That's how it has to be, is paid taxes on. But these people get to skate by not only by paying illegals, by hiring illegals, by having cheap labor, but by undercutting their taxes. It's not fair. Okay?
This is societal failure. 3 minutes. I got to end with this. So this is literally society failing. And everybody says, oh, things are going in the right direction. We got Trump in the White House and the 18 to 39-year-olds are moving to the right. And no, they're not. And I have new polling. This is just out yesterday. StoppingSocialism.com. Work with us on this. So, yeah, they did vote for Trump more than any Republican in the past. But we just asked 18 to 39-year-olds, would you like to see a Democrat socialist candidate win the 2028 election? 53% say yes, 27% say no, and 76% of them agree that major industries like healthcare, energy, and big tech should be nationalized to give more control and equity to the people. And so the problem is that we've built a society that has no room for these people. It's hostile to them. They can't start principled lives and build families. They just can't anymore. And it's because everybody fails the shopping cart test. And that is like, hey, you see a shopping cart in the parking lot. Are you going to put it back or not? Nobody's watching. It's the right thing to do. And I think that everybody, like, that's the problem. We have an individualistic society. People lined up around the block to volunteer to go storm the beaches of Normandy. And then we had to hunt people down to ship them over to Vietnam. What would happen now if we were in an existential war? I'm super concerned. But history tells us that we'll get back to that World War II lines around the block. Yeah, people to volunteer. And I don't know what's going to cause that, but it has to happen. The young people are begging for it. And we'll see.
Change has to come. As I was saying, I got a text here before we wrap. Hey, can Eric Adams come on your podcast? He'd like to come on. That should be fun. We'll see how we can make that work. Maybe we'll take Mark with us to Gracie Mansion. We'll do this interview in person. We'll take.
That's
Mark
fun. Well, my advice for him is that he's got to talk to somebody in the Trump administration. They got to open a federal case into Cuomo. Like, that's the easiest solution here.
Mark Mitchell, the people are keep asking me, are you going to go back to your normal schedule and get back to work and stop being lazy because they missed your show?
Yeah. Okay. Well, show me by going to YouTube and looking at my video yesterday. I go into how the Republican Party can be fixed in more detail than I talked about here. Rasmussen _poll on YouTube, and I promise I will stream Tuesday, Thursday next week.
There you go,
promise.
Folks. The great Mark Mitchell at Honest Pollster on Twitter. Mark, we'll see you soon, my friend.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody, for being with us today here on The Great America Show. I hope you all have a great weekend. We see you back here Monday for The Great America Show, where truth, justice, and the American way will be at the forefront. Until then, folks, may God bless you. May God bless America. And may God bless the great Lou Dobbs. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. We'll see you on Monday.